Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris here, and I wanted to bring you my review of John Wick Chapter 4. Just saw this maybe an hour ago, not long ago. My wife went with me. The original plan was that she was going to join me with this review, but because I'm recording it a little bit later at night, she just decided, you know what, I'll give you my thoughts in a nutshell, and you can relay that to the tens of viewers that are ultimately going to watch this. So before I even get into this, I will say I'm going to try to keep this pretty spoiler free. There are going to be some things in here that I refer to because I just really want to highlight what I absolutely loved about this movie. And I will say up front, I think this is one of the best action films ever made. Plot wise, I would say that I think the original John Wick is still the best from that perspective. But in my opinion, there's no question that this fourth offering that we have in front of us now is the best of all of the movies in terms of action. Just the choreography, the set pieces, just the way everything plays out is sort of mind-blowing. It's almost kind of hard to process at times. My wife described it at times as mind-numbing, and I can kind of see that perspective too, but I was just completely absorbed with what was happening. It's a 2 hour and 49-minute movie, something like that, I think. But anyway, very minor spoilers here, but really I'm going to keep it as spoiler-free as I can. Hey, if you're enjoying the content, if you like the video, please do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, please click that subscribe button, and as always, I very much appreciate your viewership. So I'm not going to take the time to summarize the first three films. If you've seen them, you kind of know what's going on. There's sort of this underworld that exists of assassins that have sort of their own way of speaking, their own way of doing things. John Wick is part of that world who initially was out of it, right? But of course, someone kills his dog in the first movie, things escalate from there, and now he's really taking on what is called the High Table, the sort of overseers of this whole world. And so I'm not really going to dig into the plot of this too much because I don't want to spoil a lot of what happens in regards to that. I really want to just talk about the action here because, when you go to see a John Wick movie, that is one of the things that's the selling point, or the main selling point, really. I think the world building is actually great in these, and there was initially some talk about a spinoff show that was going to be on Stars or Peacock or somewhere like that. I really hope that that happens as they move things forward. But I want to just focus on the action. Everybody who's in this movie does their role perfectly. They slip back into old roles. There are new roles here that are just awesome in the way that they're introduced and the way that their characters develop and the way things play out. Again, the action here is in a lot of ways kind of unparalleled. I don't know that I've ever seen an action movie like this. You think about the great action movies. I think about things like Die Hard, Terminator 2. There's nothing in those movies, quite honestly, that is on the same scale of what you get with John Wick Chapter 4. In particular, there are some sequences that really stood out to be as being amazing. And again, just very minor spoilers here, but there's a sequence, and you actually kind of get a glimpse of this in the trailer, so I guess it's not really a spoiler, but there's a sequence in Paris around the Arc de Triomphe, and it is just crazy. Just the way they set it up. Cars constantly flying by. John Wick obviously, trying to fight off multiple people who are coming after him as things sort of progress. But the way this sequence plays out is just amazing. It's one of those things where I was really kind of in awe of what I was seeing on the screen. Again, I look over at my wife and I think she's just sort of being blasted by so much of what's happening. She's just sort of like, oh my gosh, this feels like it's never ending. But to me, I love the fact that it frequently felt like it was never ending because you just get one amazing action sequence after another with this movie. There's another great sequence on a staircase in Paris, and it just keeps going and going and going. And just the dedication to the craft that we see in this movie, just the time it takes, I think, to put all this together and to give us, as fans of this franchise, as fans of just action movies in general, it's just really amazing. There's also a great overhead shot, kind of a prolonged sequence that reminded me of something like you might have seen in 1917 a little bit. But the camera just keeps going, and the way the choreography plays out is just, again, awe-inspiring. So just another great example of the hard work that has gone into putting this movie together. I think, too, right from the get-go, there's a whole sequence near the beginning of the film that takes place at the Continental in Japan, one that's set up there. You're introduced to new characters, and again, the way it plays out is it's just amazing. And I would say this, if you haven't seen the first three movies, see those movies before you see this fourth film, because in a lot of ways, it's a culmination of what the story has sort of brought to us in those first three films. Again, on an action level, this is, which is crazy to say, it very much tops the first three movies. Story-wise, it is a good way to sort of bring everything together. I do think, again, the first movie is the best plotted of all of these. And I can see why, for example, my wife felt like this one took a long time to play out. Again, 2 hours and 50 minutes or so. It's a long movie, but I loved every second of what we've got here. Donnie Yen is a great addition to this film. Also, his character, Kane. just has a lot of humanity to him, despite the fact that he's in this world and he's an assassin, just like John is. But there are a lot of parallels between their characters. Again, without getting into spoilers, the writers do a nice job of bringing these characters kind of side by side in a lot of sequences. And you can see how they mirror one another, which is kind of a nice touch in the way that they develop the story. I do think they set up some things here that can be revisited and further sort of drawn out with another film, with another TV show, which I just referenced a moment ago. And I do hope that eventually we get to that point of seeing some of those items come to fruition. Again, without getting into spoilers, there are a couple of pieces, especially early in the movie, that I would love to see explored a little bit more deeply. I will say, though, as amazing as this movie is, there was one moment in the movie where I almost laughed out loud in the theater, and I might have chuckled a little bit. It's a sequence that takes place in Berlin, and it's, the kind of nightclub fight scene that you've seen in a lot of these movies. But there is just straight up carnage happening, and all these people are sort of like rave dancing while it's going on, and seemingly don't see that people are getting shot in the head left and right until the end of the sequence, even though it's a very prolonged thing. It actually kind of reminded me in some ways of some of the rave dance sequences in I think it's the second Matrix movie, maybe the third one. I think it's the second one. It just had that kind of ridiculous, absurd feel of that. Of course, with these movies, you have to suspend your belief. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this movie also. I mean, you see this in the other John Wick movies, but a lot of stuff that happens in this movie that, of course, no human's going to survive the stuff that's going on. But it's just so masterfully done. It's just so expertly crafted that you tend to let that go and just appreciate the art that you're seeing for what it is. But yeah, there was just this one really funny moment, and I think it was unintentionally funny, that it just looked, the juxtaposition of all these people kind of rave dancing and the carnage going on and them seemingly not seeing that that's happened. Just that contrast really was maybe unintentionally hilarious, but hilarious to me. So anyway, again, in my mind, as I was on the way home from this, I was trying to think, what would an example of a better action movie be? You could probably go back through history and think about some classic films that have done a lot of great things with practical effects, that sort of stuff, in a different style than this. But from a gunplay, fighting, extended sequences, clearly a lot of care and love was put into the process type of movie. I don't really think you can do much better than John Wick Chapter 4. It is a expertly crafted, masterful action film, and if you love that sort of thing, you absolutely should check it out, especially in a theater. So anyway, if you've seen John Wick 4, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Was there anything that just stood out for you as being great, or maybe even not so great? Again, let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks so much for watching.